Ignore this. I'm doing a test of my encoder settings. And this is one of the roughest games I've got to actually stream. So I'm curious to see how well it does. In principle, I should be handing off a bunch of the processing to hardware. Which I'm not sure is actually happening, looking at those numbers. In fact, I think it's doing worse. How peculiar. It's not even managing to do 60 frames a second. So in principle, this is supposed to be doing hardware encoding. In practice, I'm not sure that it is. It's not keeping up with the 60 frames per second requirement. And the CPU utilization is through the roof. I say through the roof. Actually, you know what? Mind you, I'm running at 100 plus frames a second. Normally, I don't run this game at that speed. It's not dropping frames, but it is not handling 60 frames a second. But the encoder isn't complaining. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm not exactly sure it's doing what I want it to do. It's disturbing. Like I say, feel free to ignore this. I just needed some way to actually do a test. This seemed to be the easiest way. Odd thing is, I recorded this with the same settings and the CPU utilization was minuscule, so it looks to me like I haven't somehow managed to switch over to hardware encoding. So this is where I toggle out and go and have a look and see what my settings are for this output R. Okay, well, apparently it's not using the settings I wanted. So I'm going to stop the stream and try again. Okay, so if anybody's watching, this is actually with hardware encoding set on. And the difference is, at least as far as I'm concerned, quite dramatic. Oh, that's more like it. My CPU is only using 4.5% of the CPU. The GPU's at max. I'm running at 100 frames a second. And bitrate looks fine. It's more or less managing 60 frames a second in hardware. I'm not getting any errors from the encoder. System temperatures are a full 10 degrees lower. CPU utilization is greatly reduced. Max and we are settling at 60 frames a second. Graphics on this are absolutely maxed out. I mean, I've got absolutely everything turned up to absolute maximum, and this is working, it seems. So I am going to have a look and see what it looks like. Absolute maximum, and this is what. Looks fine to me. Oh, my goodness, what a huge difference. I mean, seriously, I'm an idiot. I'll expound on that during the live stream I started in about 45 minutes. Turns out I was using software encoding. Now, I kind of knew that, but I didn't immediately see any settings to do hardware. So today, what did I notice? I noticed something today with the with the software encoder saying it was overloaded, and so that prompted me to take a look. And it turns out I had to go into advanced settings to enable hardware encoding. I didn't think it would be like that, but it doesn't matter. But the difference is massive. Streaming this particular type of scene in this game, as I said, this game is the most challenging game I've got for streaming. Journey. Don't ask me why it is. And to stream at 60 frames a second at this resolution would use up between 35 and 40% of the CPU, which is huge. But it would do it if I dropped the frame rate down to 60 frames a second. And system temperatures would be manageable, but pushing max, but manageable, right? Right now, CPU utilization is 4.8%, which makes a lot of sense because guess what? Graphics cards have encoding hardware, and so all the work that the CPU was doing has now been dumped onto the GPU. GPU is running at max, that's fine. CPU is not. And CPU temperatures are about 10 degrees less than they would normally be for this game. And like I say, this game really hammers when streaming. I could not run, well, I could, but these settings here, which are at max, normally for streaming, I drop down to 60 frames a second and I modify these. I disable FXAA. Yeah, this is not switched on. I don't have it quite as high as this. It is flipping between about 59 and 60 frames per second for the stream, but the bit rate is exactly where I would expect. I have just solved a long-standing problem I didn't even know I freaking had. Huh. Yeah, I told you I'm an idiot. Alright, okay, so it looks like everything's working. So, yep. I will see you, anybody who looks at this, I will be on in about 40 minutes. And things should be a lot better. Well, hopefully nobody will notice any difference, but things should be a lot better. Alright. Thanks. If anybody watches this, thanks for watching. Yeah. I think this